Hey guys, welcome back to The Joy of Wrenching. I'm your friendly neighborhood mechanic, and today in the shop we've got a brand new 2024 Kia Telluride. Now, today I'm going to add something to this car that the manufacturer should have added, and that is a catch can. The reason why is because these cars that have a gas direct injection motor often rebreathe atomized oil through the PCV system, and then it gets deposited on the back side of the intake valves. And that will, over time, accumulate and ultimately make this car run poorly. So we're gonna nip this in the bud. This car only has 3,000 miles, and I just did the first oil change on it. We're gonna nip that problem in the bud by adding a cheap catch can that you can get off Amazon, and I'm gonna show you just how easy that can be. So come along and let's get into it. So Kia has put a 3.8 liter V6. Great little engine, been around for a very long time. No turbo, no supercharger, nothing fancy, but it is gas direct injected. So you see here it says GDI. And that just means that it injects gasoline directly into the cylinders. It's for better fuel efficiency. As I mentioned, this car has 3,000 miles. And so I just did the very first oil change on it. And I want you to see, look how disgustingly dirty this oil is. It is already black. And just as a reminder, this is what it goes in looking like, the sort of a honey color, right? You guys that think it's okay, and this is synthetic oil, you guys that think that it's okay to run an engine like this for 10,000 miles between oil changes, please don't do that. Change your oil every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. This stuff is circulating around in there, getting through the PCV system and getting ingested back into that engine to reburn. And so that's one of the reasons why it gets so burned up over time. We're gonna be adding a catch can to this so that this oil doesn't keep getting put back in and on your exhaust intake valves. So to keep the intake valves from getting all coked up with oil that runs through the PCV system and back into the engine, I'm going to be adding this catch can. Now this is the cheapest one that I could find on Amazon. You can get them on Amazon, you can get them online, whatever. And this is the cheapest one that still has a good filter. And what I mean by a good filter is, see right here, that bronze little dotted thing? That's a bronze micron filter. And so what happens is, you see it says in, it'll bring in air that has atomized oil in it and then drop it into this catch can. So the can catches it, and then it will breathe that air back in towards the engine through that little filter right there so that it doesn't breathe the oil back in. And then every once in a while, you just unscrew this, go dump out what it catches, and you're good to go. We're going to be adding this thing to this engine here, and I'm going to show you. All you need is a catch can, a few feet of hose, and in this case it's 3/8 inch vacuum hose, and a few connectors and hose clamps, and a couple of zip ties. And then specific to this engine bay, I'll show you, you'll also need one nut. So I'll show you here where all of this goes. Well, let's get started. So the first thing we want to do is come in here in the engine bay and remove this beauty cover. So just grab hold of it and just pop it up. It's got little bitty suction cups that sit over some studs. It just pops up. We'll set this safely out of the way here. Okay, and come see, this is where our PCV system is. So come around on this side. Right here, I'm pointing to a hose that's got a little hose clamp on it. This right here is where it breathes all of this oil-laden air back into the engine. So we're going to cut that off at the pass, and we're going to run this hose over to our to our catch can, and then we're going to mount that catch can right over here. And then from our catch can, which is going to be mounted over here, we're going to run back to that port. And that way all of that nasty stuff gets caught in our can. So Kia was nice enough to give us a stud right here. So come look right here. You see right here, there's a little plastic thing. You can pull that right off of there, and underneath that plastic is a stud. It just has nothing on it. And this cheapo catch can off of Amazon comes with this little bracket already attached. Now it was upside down, so I just unbolted it here and flipped it over, and then I wallered out one of these holes so that it would fit right there on that stud. This is where one nut is all you need, and this is an M6 metric nut, which is the same size as just about any 10mm bolt on a modern car, and this is going to hold that in place. And then we're going to come again from that line into our catch can, out of our catch can with fresh air going back into the engine. Okay, so I've got my catch can mounted here. We'll go ahead and tighten it up. Again, one 10mm nut is all it takes to hold that thing in place. And you might be asking, well, how are you going to get this thing, how are you going to test it or empty it? All you got to do is come over here every once in a while. Maybe, you know, when you first put a catch can on a car, maybe do it every couple of times you go to the gas station. You fill up just to see what it's doing, how much it's catching, really. All you got to do is just take that cup out, see whatever's caught in that cup, go pour it out, you know, somewhere safe, obviously, and then come back in here and put it back together. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this PCV hose off of that inlet port. And you can use some hose clamp pliers like these, or you can just get you some needle nose pliers, and I'll just use those to show you how easy this is. And come in here, just squeeze, and then work that clamp down off of the little stud there. All right, now we'll get in here, we'll pop this hose right loose. See, nothing to it. And this is where our extra hose that we have picked up comes into play. So I've got here about a 3-foot section of hose, and we're going to run it from that hose, which is coming out of the valve cover. So let me see if I can hold this up here so you can see it. There we go. Hopefully you guys can see that. Got that hose there. Come on, and you can get a little better view there. There we go. All right, now that's better. So I'm just gonna put this blue hose right there inside of the existing one, and then we're gonna move that clamp up into place so that it holds on. And I've got a little connector between the two. So we'll just squeeze this clamp and move it back up where it was. There. That way everything is held nice and tight. Now this other end, we're going to take over here, and this is going in. I'm over on this side now. This is going to go to our inlet side of our catch can, just like that. And we'll move this clamp up into place. Needle nose or whatever pliers you've got that you like to use for this. There we go. Now, next thing we'll do is we'll run our line from here back to that inlet port. All right, so now let's get the return hose. Again, another about a 3-foot section of 3/8 vacuum line. And we're going to attach it to the outlet port on our catch can. And we'll go ahead and run our nice little hose clamp up. Hold that nice and tight. Okay. And then the other side, we'll just route around back behind the engine. And where we're going with this is right back to this port right here where it used to go in. So we'll take that. Now I've got it longer than perhaps necessary. And the reason why I did that is so that it can make a nice gentle bend and still get plugged into this port without kinking. Because if it gets a kink in it, then it can't breathe through there. All right, let me squeeze this onto there. Go. Get that line all the way up in place. Perfect. All right. And now, as you can see, we've got this line that comes out of our catch can, makes a nice big sweeping turn. No bends, no kinks in that, and then goes into the engine. And let's go ahead and let's move that clamp up to hold it in place. Okay, so our return hose is now attached to its place, and we'll just move our hose clamp on that return hose up and in place to hold it nice and solid. And you want to use hose clamps on these because you don't really want these to be loose. It might allow unmetered air into the engine, which could cause it to run lean and set off a check engine light. So you want to make sure that these things are sealed. You've got hose clamps on all of your hoses here. Come on. Kind of hard with these needle nose, but getting there. There we go. Perfect. Too far. Got to come back down just a little bit. All right, I grabbed a different style of needle nose, a little bit more of a straight grab. There we go. That's where I want that clamp. You want those clamps to be just, just inboard of the end of the hose. That way they're holding it nice and tight. There we go. Okay, the last step to this process is you need a couple of zip ties just to make sure that we tie these hoses up out of harm's way. So I'm going to tie these two hoses together over here to these pipes. Hopefully you guys can see that. Right back in here, see these pipes? These are the brake lines. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to use one of these, and we're going to tie these hoses to the brake lines back here. Just keep them away from the heat of the engine and any other kind of moving parts that might be back here to harm these vacuum lines. There we go. Okay, so there we go. We've got that tied off. And see, again, no kinks or anything like that. Very factory looking install in this way. That's why I like doing it this way. And the other zip tie, we're going to come back in here and we're going to get these two hoses. Our other zip tie, we're going to come back here and we're going to take these two hoses and we're going to zip tie them safely back in here out of the way. You can see those where they're running against the firewall. So we'll come back in here and we'll zip tie these things up kind of safely back out of the way in here someplace. So we've got this thing all put in place now. So our catch can is mounted here to this stud. We've got our line that comes in attached to the original right here. We've got our original line coming out of the valve cover, goes into our line, which goes over to the inlet side of our catch can, and then coming out of the outlet side of our catch can. All of this is nice, tidy, tied up with some zip ties out of the way, and then making a nice sweeping curve. Notice this coming back in, nice sweeping curve, so no kinks in that. Coming right back in and being ingested, clean air this time, being ingested into the engine. So nice clean install. Like I said, this catch can, very easily accessible here. And I'll show you, I'm going to put the beauty cover back on top of the engine. This thing is still accessible in this location. So let's put this back on. I'll show you how to do that. Remember, you've got these little sockets, basically, that these nubs down here, you see these, have got to go up inside. There's 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're going to just pop up in there. So you can just kind of come in here and line up this little notch with your opening for your oil. And that generally gets you in the right location. And you'll feel and you'll hear when it pops down. You hear that little pop, pop. That little pop means it's in place. Now look here. See our catch can, all our new hoses, everything still very accessible on this Kia Telluride. And I like the way that this is set up. So we're gonna run this for a little while, and then I'm gonna see what it catches after, you know, a couple thousand miles worth of burn time. And hopefully this, you know, this may not cure all of your blow by and oil going back and being ingested into the engine, but it should cut down significantly on that. So you may not need an intake valve cleaning at 100,000 miles on an engine with a catch can. Maybe it's 150 or 200,000 miles. Just depends on the quality of catch can, depends on the problem or how bad the problem is with your engine of ingesting oil. This is a brand new car, my wife's car, so I want to make sure that this isn't a problem that we have coming down the road. And I'll let you know how this goes, and I'll show you what we catch in that can. Well, so by the magic of television, or YouTube in this case, it's been 5,000 miles. So we've got 8,200 miles on the Kia now. And I just did the second oil change, and I just wanted to show you what that oil looks like. And it too is pretty dark. So this thing makes the oil dark through an oil change. Is that a bad thing? I don't know. It's just an observation. So when I see something like that, I'm going to recommend to you guys that you don't run extended oil changes. This has been 5,000 miles. The oil is dark. Change it. All right. The other thing we want to do is we want to check now what we caught in our oil separator, oil catch can. So let's go see. All right, so here's our catch can. We installed that during the last oil change, if you remember. So it's been 5,000 miles, and I'm curious, and I'll bet you are too, to see what kind of oil we caught in there. So come on, let's do it together. All you got to do is unscrew these things. Everything is held up as far as the lines. They haven't been in the way of anything. It's got a lot of threads for a little catch can, but I guess that's better than fewer threads. It doesn't look like it's leaked anything anywhere, so that's also a good sign. Okay, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty now. All right, hey, we did catch something. Look at there. Okay, so there you go. You can see, ooh, wow. All right, let me put that in this clear cup here so you guys can see what we got. Okay, really not a terrible amount there, but look down in here. Look at that. What is that? It's almost like a emulsion, a little bit of moisture mixed with some oil down in the bottom there. Let me see if I can get that into the cup as well. It didn't want to just drain out, so you may find that also you have to kind of help some of that junk get out of your oil catch can. But it's definitely working. It's catching stuff. So here's what we've caught in our, let me try and put it against a white background for you. Here's what we caught. Kind of looks like oil, but you can see there's some milkiness to it. Definitely don't want that going back into the engine and caking up the backside of our intake valves. Let's take a look at the separator itself, and you see the little separator plate looks to have a few little bits of maybe some oil on it. But everything seems to be pretty clean. So I'm going to say that it seems to be in good shape. I'm going to clean that little screen under there, and it doesn't have anything on it. So it seems to be working. Surprisingly, maybe not. I don't know. We didn't get a ton of stuff out of there. I'm glad we caught something, but maybe that's a good indication that this engine in particular, at least when new, doesn't have a lot of blow-by and a lot of oil atomization that's being breathed in back into the engine to cake up the backside of those intake valves. So I'm going to say that that's a good sign. And I'm going to clean this out really good. You can see what I'm getting out of it there. I'm going to clean this out really good, put it back in place, and I'm going to keep it on there because whether it's this much or something more, I still think that it's doing a good job for us. So all in all, good addition, and I'd do it again. Got this thing nice and cleaned out. No more gunk down in the bottom of there. So we'll go ahead and just slip it back on there. Make sure that we engage our threads correctly. And there's a little O-ring in here to seal this thing up, and that seems to be holding up well also. No messes, no leaks. So I'm pretty impressed with this. I think it was, less than $20, this little catch can, and I'll put a link to it in the description again, if they still exist. It's been, gosh, a couple of months now since I put that thing on there. You know how things come and go on Amazon, but I'll put a link to some of them in the description. So as you can see, we caught a little bit of something. Definitely stuff I don't want. This engine, it's my wife's car. I don't want it to be rebreathing. I don't want to have any of those issues with intake valve coking. Engine itself appears to be holding up very well. Underneath, everything's clean, no leaks yet. And the oil, other than being kind of dark or being used up within that 5,000 mile period, everything seems to be doing very well on this engine. So been impressed with it so far. Thank you guys. I hope this was interesting to you. And as you can see from my previous portion of this video, the installation of these catch cans, no big deal on these engines. And if you're concerned, as I am, about rebreathing atomized oil, put one of these on there. They're not that hard to do. It's not that expensive, and it's actually doing its job. So thank you guys for tuning in. I hope that you found this helpful. If it did help you in any way or was entertaining, hit that subscribe and that like button. Leave me a comment down below if you think if these catch cans are worth it or not. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch us today. Y'all have a good day. God bless.